Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Mannimal.
Well, there's polecats, there's ferrets,
And then-
there's polecat ferrets. What we have here is polecat ferrets. I mean, really, they're ferrets. They're feral ferrets, but they may go back a long way, and a lot of them are what you might call almost at least wild type. So they pretty much look like ferrets, but probably a little paler, and those may be a little less distinct. But you can also get yellow ones. You can get ones that I saw one that looked a bit like a panda in ferret form. You get all sorts of different colourings, which just shows the sort of mix of origins, I think, there.
So these, you say feral, and so have these been originally domesticated ferrets kept for rabbiting, which have then escaped and set up a feral colony?
Yes, although this could go back 800 years, or
as long as that.
There will have been ferrets here for many hundreds of years. Some will have escaped or been taken out into the wild. I mean, the rabbits here go back a fair way. When they were running warrens, the Calf, the Ayers, places like this, when it was hard to get rabbits to breed in the British Isles, but they were really important food, so these were owned private warrened areas. So the Lord of Man had warrens, and they would
specifically
have
for food.
Yes, to provide for the kitchen. So that the ferrets will have been around quite a long time and will have come from this kind of pastime.
Oh gosh, that is going back a hell of a long time. I didn't realise that. So a lot of the population there would hark back literally centuries to those times.
Yes, may well go back a long way.
Oh, fascinating. And then again, you said polecat ferrets, and I always get slightly mixed up as well. So we also have stoats here. So same family of different animal.
Yes, they're all mustelids. So we have the two species here, essentially the stoats and the ferrets, polecat ferrets.
And the stoats, as I understand it, are far rarer. Like I said, I see a lot of polecats. I have seen a stoat before, but not for a long time. Actually, I had a friend who, again, found a dead one, actually brought it to show me, and I don't think I've ever seen a live one.
They do seem to be at much lower densities. That is apparent. We don't have any actual density estimates for either species, but I too see far more polecat ferrets than I do stoats. They're both pretty nocturnal, which doesn't help. And the stoats tend to be fairly secretive, but you do come across them now and again. But I've read that back in Larch Garrett's day, they hadn't seen stoats for decades, and there were hardly any on the island. And were they still extant on the island? But they clearly are. And I've been collecting up records for a number of years, and then others have added to them, and we're getting a fair list now. So it's fairly clear that they are widespread, but pretty thinly spread on the island in a variety of habitats that are suitable for them.
And so what do they take mostly? You do see them, like I said, if I see polecats mostly, and funnily enough, it's around this area. It's the last couple of times I've seen them, they've been around the sort of St John's, Cronkovody, Glen Helen area, scuttling down the side of the road at night normally, and sadly that's where they seem to quite often get hit by cars and killed. What are they hunting for? Other small mammals, like sort of mice, or are they going for insects, or what is it they're going for?
The stoats. They're taking rabbits to a large extent. I mean, we don't know here, but certainly across they eat a lot of rabbits. I'm sure they'll be taking the longtails, so they probably do quite a fine job in keeping things under control there. I know some people are worried about the predatory habits from the other side of the fence, and that's taking birds and such like. But where I've heard about people having issues with things like chickens, it tends to be the polecat ferrets rather than stoats that seem to be an issue. But then, as you pointed out, there seem to be more of them. So
absolutely. And will they go for rabbits as well in a similar sort of diet?
Yes, yeah.
So where do weasels weasel their way in?
Weasels is smaller again. So your polecat ferret's a largish animal, nothing like a badger size, but what size of a dachshund would you say? Yeah. Even shorter legs. A stoat is much, much smaller, and it's got a black tip to the tail. Sometimes we've had descriptions of squirrels, and when you get a clear description of the black tip to the tail and things, you realise that it's a stoat, but people rarely see them, they're not used to them. Weasels were a lot smaller again than a stoat, so the size difference between the three is significant.
Quite marked.
Yes, and they don't have any black tip to the tail. They're a very, very slender, small animal is a weasel.
And have they ever been recorded on the island? Because I've never heard of them being recorded here. But
no, I've heard people speak about them, that they believe they're here, but there's never been any evidence provided of that.
Oh, interesting. So, yes, if you know of a weasel around your place, it'd be fascinating to know, because, again, it always fascinates me how, when you think they're all in the same family, and you think, well, why would we have two and not the other? You would think if it was good hunting for two of them, then the third would be here as well.
Yeah, and the stoats are of interest here because they're different from the British ones. They seem to be
A different
similar.
population.
The pelage is similar to the Irish stoat. So where the orange back and flank meets the white of the belly, that's wavy on a Manx stoat and on an Irish stoat, whereas it's straight-edged on the British stoat.
Oh, so it's like a sort of subspecies, or?
Well, there was there was all sorts of talk back in Victorian days about the smaller Irish stoat and whether that harked back to animals earlier in the evolution. Perhaps there was a progenitor that separated to the weasels and the stoats, and these small stoats, perhaps that's a sort of one that's in between there somewhere, or hybrid, or the various ideas. Current thinking is that there's a genetic aspect to this, which is the stoats that have the wavy edges. So here, Isle of Man, also Isla and Jura, also, interestingly, the west coast of Canada and the USA, west from the Rockies, they have this pelage and they don't turn white in the winter.
Yeah, okay.
And then the straight-edged ones in Britain, they do turn to ermine in the wintertime, which is where all the lords get their robes from originally. Now, weasels, similarly, when you go to the far north of their distribution, up into the north of Scandinavia, they also turn white in the winter. And they seem to have the same genetic link. They have different pelage. So I don't think there's necessarily evidence in that, although nobody's tested it, as to whether our stoats are linked to Manx stoats in their origins, because things could have come from Britain or it could have come from Ireland, but it's deeper water on that side. But there seems to be that genetic factor which certainly is similar, that we have a population of stoats that doesn't turn white in the winter, and perhaps that's linked to the fact that genetically it also has this difference in pelage, and the two are linked somewhere in the chromosomes.
That's fascinating, isn't it? It's just amazing. It sounds to me like a perfect PhD project for a zoology
well,
student.
there is, absolutely. I mean, we somebody could look into the genetics and see where our stoats do come from. You know, might compare them with the genetics of stoats from other areas of the British Isles and Europe, and see where they fit into the system.
When I come back with my bigger brain in my next life, that will be first on my list.